Scene 21. Blood in the water. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead in the cramped conference room, illuminating briskly folded papers spread across the table like a chaotic quilt of evidence. Agent Tonja Coleman adjusted her chair, the squeaking sound echoing too loudly in the heavy air. A palpable tension thrummed around her, a dissonant hum that matched the rapid pulse of her heart. She took a moment to collect herself, her fingers brushing against the edges of photographs depicting the sprawling dockside warehouses used by the syndicate. Murky waters lapped against the steel of the city, each wave a reminder of the secrets swirling just below the surface. Is everyone here? Enzo Arnaud leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his brow furrowed in concentration. The meeting began to gather steam, the agents trickling in like blood into a wound rushed urgent, with something visceral at stake. Most are accounted for, answered Rosie Santana, her voice smooth with a hint of anxiety. But there's no time to waste. We've got a lead on the syndicate's last shipment. Her eyes darted towards Tonja, a shared understanding passing between them. They were in this together, but for how long? Just as the tension shifted slightly, the door swung open with a sharp creak, heralding the entrance of Derek Malone, an unyielding force within the team. "We have breaking news," he declared, an electrifying edge to his tone. He held up a phone, the screen lighting his face eerily. "The right-hand man of Vargas was found dead at the docks this morning. Gunshot wounds looks like an ambush." Gasps filled the room, punctuated by the scratch of chairs shifting as all eyes turned to Tonja. "Do we know who did it?" she pressed, her voice steady but laced with an uncharacteristic sharpness. "Not yet, but—" Derek hesitated. "Rumor has it that the higher-ups are already in a frenzy. This could shake the entire syndicate. We need to act fast." "What if it's a setup?" Enzo's voice cut through the rising tumult, grounding their spiraling thoughts. "We don't know who's playing whom." Tonja shot him a glance filled with unvoiced concern. His perceptiveness always astounded her, the way he could cut through the noise to pinpoint the heart of a matter. She wondered at the weight of his own burdens, sensed the tension woven into his muscles. It was apparent he carried more than he revealed. "Enough with the conspiracy theories," Rosie interjected, fumbling with the evidence files. "Let's focus on the facts. We have a manslaughter to investigate." But before they could dive deeper into strategy, a man burst through the door, wild-eyed and breathless. "Boss, they're coming," he gasped, panic spilling into the room like water breaching a levee. "What do you mean? Who's coming?" Derek snapped, rising to his feet. "The syndicate's muscle, ma'am. They're gathering at the docks right now. Someone tipped them off." The atmosphere shifted, a charged stillness settling after the storm of unease. Tonja exchanged a look with Enzo, reading the unspoken fear in his expression. In those few seconds of silence, a storm of emotions flared between them, tension twisted with mutual trust unacknowledged. "Then we need to be there first," Tonja stated decisively, her resolve hardening like steel. "Gather the team." As the agents erupted into action, Enzo caught Tonja's arm, his grip firm but gentle. "Be careful, Tonja. We don't know what we're walking into," he murmured, the weight of the world hanging between them, fragile yet unyielding. "There's always danger, Enzo." She smirked, a defiant light in her eyes. "Besides, Danger and I are practically on a first-name basis." "Not if I can help it," he replied, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. The spark felt electric, and Tonja was momentarily lost in the interplay of their gazes. The moment stretched like taut string, but the urgency pressed in, shattering the fragile intimacy. "Let's move, you two," Rosie urged, a determined expression on her face, forcing the connection between Tonja and Enzo to abruptly redirect. They exchanged nods, the understanding that this was not the time for distraction, however welcome. "Blood is in the water," Tonja declared, the words resonating with a sense of foreboding as they hurried from the room. Beneath the surface, the dark undercurrents of deceit and violence churned, all leading to the docks. Soon, the tension would be tangible, sharp like broken glass, ready to cut through the lies they were weaving in their dangerous game. Scene 22. A web of lies. The sunlight filtered through the trees lining the FBI office parking lot, casting intricate shadows that danced over Tonja Coleman as she leaned against her sleek black SUV. Each breath she took was filled with a mix of crisp autumn air and the ever-looming sense of urgency that gripped her heart. The parking lot buzzed with muted conversations and the distant hum of vehicles, but in her mind, silence reigned supreme, a quiet battlefield where tension and determination clashed. Tonja flipped open a worn leather notebook, the pages filled with scribbles, leads, and names that twirled like smoke rings in her mind. She was chasing a phantom. The mole within the bureau had to be more than just an informant, someone intimate enough to know the pulse of their movements, someone who played a game with deadly stakes. Her fingers traced over a name she'd written a week ago. The ink faded, but the memory clear. Melanie Scott. Hey, you thinking too hard again? Rosie Santana appeared at her side, her bright yellow dress a stark contrast to the drab surroundings. The sunlight caught in her curls, making them glimmer as she leaned lightly closer, her tone teasing yet laced with concern. You know, contemplating life while scouring for spies might lead to wrinkles. Tonja smirked, but the weight of the world pressed her lips into a thin line. We need this mole's identity. Every moment spent searching for anything is one closer to danger. Rosie rolled her eyes, an exaggerated movement that drew a light chuckle from Tonja. You say that like you're planning on becoming a recluse. How about a bit of fun before you play Sherlock again? Just for the evening? Not really feeling like a social butterfly. Tonja closed her notebook, the soft leather snapping shut like the door on her social life. Enzo Arnaud emerged from the building, his tall frame effortlessly drawing attention. He had an air of intrigue, a storm of hidden thoughts swirling behind those dark eyes. The moment their gazes locked, the world around them blurred. Rosie's playful banter faded, replaced by a taut silence that buzzed with electricity. What's the game plan? Enzo asked, his voice low and steady, but underneath lay a current of unexpressed emotions. Tonja met his stare, feeling her pulse quicken. I tracked the leads on the Melanie case. She's been in deep with someone at HQ. I need to know what she knows. Enzo nodded, the lines of his face deepening as he considered the information. So we confront her then? Or do we play it cool? She might have allies, and pressing her can backfire. The electricity between them crackled in a way neither could ignore. It wasn't just a partnership. It was a bond that cut through the chaos of their lives. Just as Tonja opened her mouth to respond, the sound of a throttle echoed from the nearby road. A sleek black motorbike roared to life, disrupting the moment. That seems like a distraction, Rosie quipped, eyeing a neighboring FBI agent who had ridden up, clearly more interested in attention than manners. Suddenly, the ringing of Tonja's phone jolted her back into focus. The number was unfamiliar. Excuse me, I need to take this. With a single nod, Enzo stepped back, allowing her the space to maneuver amidst her thoughts, as if he could sense the weighty choices pressing upon her. She answered, her heart pounding with anticipation. Coleman, your inquiry has caused quite the stir, a voice on the other end murmured, a masked voice dripping in menace. Who is this? Tonja demanded, her analytical instincts kicking into high gear. Someone who knows your every move, and your little engagement is the least of your concerns. Engagement? The word slipped from her lips, confusion mingling with dread. A laugh, cruel and mocking, echoed in her ear before the line went dead. Tonja clicked the phone shut, fire igniting in her chest. They know. What is it? Enzo stepped forward, concern etching his face. They know about the engagement. Tonja glanced toward the FBI office, a predator scenting the air. We need to move. Before she could explain further, the distant sound of shouting erupted from the office. A brawl broke out inside. Chaos spilling through the doors as agents scrambled toward the sound, their voices intermingling with the sound of shouts and angry accusations. Unit 5. It's a fight! An agent shouted, struggling to break free of the throng. Without thinking, Tonja and Enzo bolted toward the fray, adrenaline surging as they leaped into the unknown, knowing that amidst the chaos lay the answers they sought. Get ready, Enzo exclaimed, a fire igniting in his eyes. The web of lies was tightening, and they were determined to cut through it, united against the darkness rising just ahead. Scene 23. The plot thickens. The heavy rain lashed against the glass of the small office, each droplet creating a rhythm that felt as frenetic as the investigation consuming Tonja Coleman and Enzo Arnaud. The candle flickered nearby, illuminating the shadows that danced across the room. It was late evening, and the world outside seemed steeped in secrets, the downpour mirroring the tension that crackled in the air between them. "Who do we trust now?" Enzo murmured, his voice a deep rumble as he leaned against the desk cluttered with files. His blue eyes, stormy and piercing, held an intensity that merged with the unsettled weather outside. "This just keeps getting bigger, Tonja." Tonja stood at the window, her tall frame silhouetted against the storm. "We need to follow the money trail," she replied, her tone steady, though her heart raced at the implications. "The syndicate is tied to someone in the department. I can feel it, like static buzzing in the back of my mind." A flash of lightning illuminated the room, and in that moment Enzo stepped closer, the space between them shrinking. "You've always had a way of knowing things, you know?" His voice dropped to a more intimate cadence. "I just wish we were clearer on how deep this goes." "Yes," Tonja said, turning from the window, her breath catching at the proximity. "And if we're not careful, it could blow back on us really fast." She drew in a breath, the scent of rain-soaked earth mingling with the warm aroma of the coffee they'd brewed hours earlier. Enzo, sensing the shift in their dynamic, took a step back. Yet the electricity in the air tugged at them like an unseen force. "What do you want, Tonja, out of all of this?" His eyes searched hers, as if hoping for a different answer. She fought the urge to let her guard down, to reveal the vulnerability she kept concealed beneath the surface. "I want justice, not just for the victims, but for us." Her resolve cracked just a little, and she couldn't help but acknowledge the bond that had formed between them amidst the chaos. Before Enzo could respond, a loud bang echoed from the street below. Both of them instinctively reached for their weapons, hearts racing. "What was that?" he asked, concern creeping into his voice. "Sounds like trouble. Let's go," Tonja said, shaking off the moment of intimacy as adrenaline washed over her. They quickly gathered their things, the air suddenly charged with urgency. Just as they turned to leave, a figure loomed in the doorway, drenched from the rain. It was Rosie, Tonja's best friend, her dark hair clinging to her face like tendrils of shadow. "You two look like you were in the middle of something," she said, a teasing lilt in her voice. Tension broke slightly with her arrival, but only for a moment. "Not what you think," Enzo replied, but the grin playing at the corners of his mouth betrayed him, even amidst the chaos. "Right, you were just about to dive into who gets the biggest piece of the conspiracy pie," Rosie quipped, crossing her arms. "You know, it's good to see you both working together so well. Are we feeling the love today?" "Focus," Tonja said sharply, but the warmth in her voice was undeniable. The two women shared a knowing glance. Rosie always had a way of lightening the mood, even as darkness threatened. "I might have a lead on some of those missing officials," Rosie said, her expression turning serious. "Let's not forget there are more than just shady people in high places trying to cover their tracks." "Good," Enzo replied. "We can't afford any mistakes." He caught Tonja's eye again, the moment seemingly stretching between them, the promise of what their connection could become nestled just beneath the surface. "Here's an idea," Rosie interjected, dragging them back into action. "Let's split up and scoop up intel before we catch the monsters hiding in the shadows." As they moved to strategize, the cacophony of the rain continued outside, but within the walls of the small office, a different storm brewed. Tonja couldn't shake the lingering sensation from their earlier moment. There, amidst the impending chaos, was a whisper of something profound, a shared resolve that felt both electric and dangerous. "Just remember," Enzo said, drawing her attention back as they prepared to leave. "We've got each other's backs, always." The weight of his words tugged at her heart, a promise that echoed amidst the rain-drenched night. "Always," she echoed, determination surging within her as they stepped into the storm together. The night was just beginning, and as darkness settled deep within the city, so did the layers of conspiracy wrap tighter around them. What awaited could shatter their world or bond them in ways they had yet to imagine. Scene 24. Dangerous Liaisons. The evening dripped with a hushed intensity as Tonja Coleman stepped into the shadowy confines of the Velvet Corner, a club that fringed the underbelly of the city. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of aged whiskey and the soft hum of a jazz ensemble, the notes weaving through the space like tendrils of smoke. Patrons huddled in corners, laughter mingling with whispered secrets, each person a potential ally or enemy. Tonja approached the bar, her sharp gaze scanning the room. Dim lighting caught the glint of brass and steel along the fixtures, casting low reflections on the polished surface of the mahogany counter. She needed to remain inconspicuous, yet every inch of her screamed otherwise. The tailored black dress wrapped her athletic form, accentuating her strength while disguising her power. "Tell me, is trust in this room simply a myth?" A voice broke her contemplation. It was Marcus, the Hawk Caldwell, a crime figure known for his hawkish demeanor and piercing gray eyes that analyzed every movement like a chess master. "Trust is in short supply, Marcus," Tonja replied, raising an eyebrow. She let her voice linger, drawing curiosity and doubt from the patrons lingering nearby. He tilted his head back, taking a swig from his glass, his smile calculating. "Seen any ghosts lately?" "Only the ones that refuse to stay buried," she whispered, lips curling into a playful smirk before the sparkle in her eyes faded momentarily, revealing the weight of her recent visions. Marcus leaned closer, intrigued. "A mystery in the making, I see. Care to share?" Before she could answer, the heat of another presence brushed against her back. Enzo Arnaud, his strong but graceful hands resting lightly on her shoulders. "Here you are, darling," he said, voice rich with a teasing lilt. The playful words slipped easily into their act of a faux couple. "I've been searching everywhere." Tonja glanced at him, startled at how the mundane words sparked a simmering tension between them, a connection that balanced on the brink of intimacy. "Looks like I found something interesting," she said, nodding at Marcus. "Interesting? This one's nothing but a mirage," Marcus said dismissively. "A pretty face barking behind a badge." Enzo smirked, reveling in their dynamic. "And yet, it's the mirage that's been catching your eye." The underlying implications dripped from his words, teasing, challenging. He knew Tonja was more than she seemed. "Easy on the drinks, Enzo," Tonja said, waving a hand dismissively in his direction, while side-eyeing Marcus, a quick exchange of unspoken words flaring between them. In the periphery, a group gathered, their whispers spilling over the ambient music. The moment settled into a tense silence, the weight of secrets looming heavy as a gun's barrel. From behind them, a glint caught Tonja's notice, a flicker of danger she instinctively sensed. "Why don't we move to a quieter table?" she suggested, the words soft but urgent, her mental calculations working now overdrive. As Marcus gestured toward a back booth, the jazz ensemble hit an intense crescendo, their melodic notes drowning out other sounds as they drifted toward the secluded area. It felt like a trap, but Tonja smiled, maintaining the illusion of ease. Enzo's eyes reflected the same strain of intensity she felt inside. "What's the play?" he asked quietly, moments later, as they slid into the booth, their bodies close. "We probe for information, sow distrust among the sheep," Tonja murmured, the bold plan rolling off her tongue like the whiskey they were being served. "But I need you to play along, like always." "Always, isn't that our motto?" he affirmed, a twinkle in his eye as he leaned slightly closer, raising his glass. Enjoying this moment, the ebb and flow of their chemistry danced just out of reach. She held his gaze, heart racing, as a strand of tension wove between them, the silence filling with possibilities they dared not voice. "Here's to dangerous liaisons," Enzo said softly. "May we all come out unscathed," Tonja replied, smirking. Just as the bubbles of lightheartedness threatened to burst, the booth shifted with a loud crash, a bottle carelessly knocked aside by the surging tide of nearby revelers. Laughter erupted, breaking the moment and reminding them of the chaotic world around them. Tonja's intuition surged, whispering of a looming threat. "We need to keep our guard up." "Does that mean you'll stop dabbling in enemy territory?" he teased, lightening the mood. "Only if you stop trying to charm the enemies," she shot back, the tension of her expression softening slightly as their playful banter continued beneath the surface. "Deal," he said, and for a fleeting moment, there was peace in their shared laughter among the chaos. But deep down, they both felt the dawning truth. The real danger was just beginning to unfold. Scene 25, Ultimate Sacrifice. The tension in the dim alleyway hung palpably, the scent of damp concrete mingling with the distant sound of sirens. Tonja Coleman leaned against the rough brick wall, her heart racing, not just from the adrenaline coursing through her veins, but from the weight of uncertainty that pressed on her chest. She could hear the low murmur of conversation echoing from the nearby car, Enzo's voice distinct among the others as they discussed the dire situation at hand. Their task loomed larger than the shadows around them. One of the most respected figures in law enforcement was being held hostage by the syndicate that threatened to crumble their lives. "Tonja, can you hear me?" Enzo's voice broke through her thoughts, and she looked up to see him stepping towards her, his expression a mask of poised determination. "I'm here," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. She pushed away from the wall, the taste of impending danger lingering in her mouth. "We have to make this decision together. We can't let them use him against us." His dark eyes were serious, but they flickered with the slightest hint of vulnerability, pulling her deeper into the moment. Tonja stepped closer, the space between them narrowing, the air crackling with unspoken words. "What if they're watching? What if they know we're here?" "It doesn't matter." Enzo's voice had dropped to a whisper, filled with urgency. "We can't let fear dictate our choices. We risk everything for him, for our cause. Wouldn't you do the same?" The gravity of their situation weighed heavy on her. His words tugged at her heartstrings, but deeper still, she felt the pull of what lay between them, a bond forged through danger, respect, and an undercurrent of unacknowledged emotion. Tonja reached out, placing a hand on his arm, and felt the warmth of his skin beneath the fabric of his shirt. Her touch lingered for a heartbeat longer than intended, and she could see the way his breath caught, the tightening in his posture, the momentary flicker of something raw in his gaze. And just like that, the world outside faded into silence. The urgency of the situation dulled, giving way to something intimate, something that made her pulse race for an entirely different reason. "I've got your back, Enzo, always," she murmured, their faces mere inches apart. She sensed the shifting energy, the unsaid promise that existed in this fleeting moment. His gaze searched hers, and she could feel the weight of his thoughts, the swirling seas of doubt and courage within him. It was in the way he leaned closer, his breath mingling with hers, warm and inviting. "Together, right?" His voice was soft but commanding, stepping into the space where their realities often collided. This shared existence, defined by perils yet anchored by an unbreakable trust. "Together." She nodded, her heart aligned with his rhythm. Then, in an electrifying heartbeat, he closed the distance. His lips brushed against hers, tentative yet fervent, a tantalizing dance that ignited a fire in her chest. The kiss grew bolder, a whisper of reassurance beneath the chaos that surrounded them. She returned the heat of his touch, feeling the world briefly fall away, just the two of them encased in this moment of vulnerability and strength. But just as quickly as it had begun, the weight of their reality pulled them back, as sirens blared disturbingly close. Tonja pulled away, breathless, the warmth of their exchange still blooming like wildfire across her skin. "Let's go," she said, resolve settling over her like armor, her determination ignited. "We don't have time to waste." Enzo nodded, his expression shifting back to focus, but that flicker of intimacy lingered in the air, a promise of battles fought together, of sacrifices made and loved ones protected. As they stepped into action, the weight of their decisions loomed ahead, but in the back of her mind, a single thought flickered like a beacon. Sometimes the strongest alliances come with the greatest risks. Scene 26, rallying the troops. The conference room buzzed with an electric tension, the dim overhead lights flickering slightly as the group settled into their chairs around the table. A hastily drawn blueprint of the syndicate's alleged hideout lay spread across the surface, littered with sticky notes and hastily scrawled observations. "So, how do we make this work?" Enzo mused, leaning forward, his brow furrowing as he traced a finger along the outline of the building. "We can't just storm in there. We need a strategy." Tonja glanced up from her notes, the weight of her psychic abilities evident in her focused gaze. "Timing is everything. If we go in too early, we risk spooking them." Her mind raced, conjuring images of the hostage's fearful face as her heart tightened. "We need a distraction, something big." From the corner of the room, Rosie swooped in, her presence an infusion of infectious energy. "How about we set off some fireworks?" she proposed, her eyes sparkling mischievously. "Nothing says, 'Look over there,' quite like sparklers at midnight." The laughter that followed was a welcome break, though the seriousness of their mission loomed just beyond the light banter. Fireworks? Really? Enzo replied, chuckling softly. But every child knows fireworks mean a party, not a rescue. He shot Rosie an amused glance, but nestled behind the banter was a nervous tension that even the closest friends couldn't dispel. Enough jokes for now, Tonja interjected, her voice steady and authoritative, cutting through the levity like a knife. She shifted her weight, her athletic frame poised, ready to take on whatever lay ahead. We need to put together a solid plan to save the hostage. Lives are on the line. All right, Enzo said, locking eyes with her, his dark stare revealing a depth of understanding that transcended words. There was a moment of silence, a pregnant pause, as both weighed the implications of the mission, the risks, the sacrifices, the unspoken truths between them. Across the table, Rich, the tech expert, fiddled with his laptop, casting nervous glances at the others. I might have something to help, he began, his voice barely louder than a whisper. I've been scanning their communication lines. Looks like they're planning to move the hostage tonight. We have to move then, Tonja declared, her heart hammering in her chest. Rich, do you have a location? He nodded, flicking a switch on his device that illuminated the screen with a series of flashing coordinates. The room shifted to attention as his actions steered the gravity of their urgent reality. This is where they're holding her. Then let's hit them tonight, Rosie added with an excited edge, a fire igniting behind her eyes. I'll distract them with some fabulous charm while you two. Rosie, Enzo interrupted, his expression suddenly more serious. This isn't a game. We're not going in for a social visit. Who said I can't charm old Mr. Grimm with my dazzling personality? Rosie shot back playfully, but Tonja could feel the undercurrent of irony in her voice. The stakes were too high, but it was that very spirit they needed, the balance of seriousness and levity that made their unlikely team work. A sudden knock on the door disrupted the rally, and every head turned sharply. The door swung open to reveal their teammate, Devon, bushy-haired and breathless. You guys won't believe this. I overheard a conversation at the bar across the street. They're moving the hostage in an hour, some sort of exchange. See? Rosie said with an exaggerated grin. The universe loves me. Let's focus here, Enzo exclaimed in a voice that commanded attention. All eyes shifted back to him. Let's break into two groups. Tonja and I will go in for the hostage. The rest of you. He gestured around. Create that distraction Rosie talked about. Make it grand, sparkle it up. Like my personality, Rosie quipped, and the room erupted in laughter, easing the tension once more. Yet beneath the camaraderie, Tonja felt the familiar murmur of disquiet pressing at the edges of her mind. Tonja leaned closer to Enzo, her voice a murmur meant only for his ears. What if they know? What if they catch on to us? His gaze lingered on hers, intense and unwavering. Then we'll deal with it together, he said quietly, a confidence radiating from him that momentarily eased her worries. Her heart fluttered, but she masked the feeling with determination. All right. Everyone knows what to do. We're out of here in 15. As the team stood to gather their things, the weight of their tasks settled like a blanket over them. Tonja caught Enzo lingering back, a question in his eyes that only hinted at deeper discussions yet to come. Let's bring her home, she declared, resolute. And with that, they moved toward their impending confrontation, united in purpose, ready to uncover not just the truth behind the syndicate, but the deeper connections that bound them together. Scene 27. The element of surprise. The air was thick with the musk of impending rain as gray clouds drifted ominously over the warehouse district. Drops began to splatter against the cracked pavement, the rhythmic pitter-patter melding with the murmur of muffled voices inside the nearby rusted building. It felt like an odd omen, the kind that sent prickles down the spine, igniting a familiar tension that went beyond the mere physical. Tonja Coleman stood at the edge of the slick alleyway, her athletic frame illuminated briefly by the intermittent flashes flickering across the sky. She focused intently on the building ahead, her senses sharpening as if welcoming the storm's charge. Enzo, she said softly, I can feel the energy shifting inside. She's here. I can sense it. Enzo Arnaud, leaning against the brick wall, nodded as he adjusted the tactical gear strapped across his shoulders. His dark eyes mirrored the clouds above, revealing the storm inside him as much as the one brewing outside. Let's not keep our girl waiting. I'll coordinate the entry. You just focus on the pulse. With a slight tilt of her head, Tonja locked eyes with him. In that shared moment, a silent understanding passed between them, one that often danced around unspoken emotions. But the weight of their mission pushed aside the intimacy pulsating in the space between. "Okay, I'm ready," she said, her voice steady, despite her heart's urge to quicken. She drew in a breath, bracing herself against the invasive whispers of the warehouse walls, grounding herself in the chaotic energy swirling around them. "Let's go." The rain began to fall harder, a curtain of water weaving around them as they dashed to the entrance, unseen, a slicking on the concrete the only testament to their swift movements. Tonja reached out with her power, her mind extending toward the situation inside as Enzo's fingers skillfully clicked on the radio, assembling the team. "Okay, team, we have eyes on the target." Enzo's low voice crackled through the radio waves. "Tonja's in position. We move on 3. Stay sharp." An echo of affirmatives wired back, propelling them into action. Tonja felt the connection, the pull, where she needed to go, not merely among the shadows, but deep within the structure, behind a wall of heavy despair, the energy palpable like a live wire. 2, 1, now! Enzo commanded, and the world erupted as the door burst open. Tonja zipped through the flickering darkness, distantly aware of the commotion, as her psychic vision reached into the depths of anguish lurking in the corners. Her heart raced as she approached the hostage, a young woman bound and bruised, fear radiating from her essence like ripples in water. It saddened Tonja. It ignited a fierce resolve. Fists tightened against her sides, she leaped forward, propelling herself with a speed that felt like the wind tearing through her as she kicked down the inner door, slamming it against a wall with a resounding crash. The thugs, caught off guard, scrambled as the light from outside spilled in, revealing startled faces contorted with surprise. "Get down!" Enzo barked, drawing his weapon with steady hands, eyes focused and fierce. The room erupted in chaos. Tonja moved like a shadow, disarming one thug before he even had a chance to process her presence. Her strength was formidable, as she knocked him down with a swift, calculated thrust, but her attention remained on the hostage. The girl's eyes widened with a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. "Hang on!" Tonja breathed, impending rain pounding against the iron roof like a heartbeat. There was no time. Each second echoed in her mind, propelling her forward. As she reached the captive, the air suddenly pulsed. Another force emerged behind her, another villain. The figure was imposing, cloaked in shadows, embodying a sinister energy that sent a chill down Tonja's spine. She turned just as a swift punch grazed her cheek, sending her to the ground. "Tonja!" Enzo shouted, his eyes blazing with fury. He fired, hitting the shadowy figure with precision that made her heart swell. He never missed, always in sync with her, a dance of danger and intent. With a surge of strength, Tonja rolled back onto her feet, locking gazes with Enzo for a brief, electric moment of connection. Fueled by adrenaline and resolute purpose, she met the villain's charge with equal intensity, her powers flaring as she grasped the weight of their shared trust, facing foes together, every fight a testament to their unshakable bond. And as the tension knotted around them, she knew, above all else, she wasn't alone. "Let's finish this," she called out, her voice clear above the din, the promise of victory dancing between them, a promise of more than just survival. Scene 28, Heart of Darkness. The fluorescent lights in the dimly lit interrogation room flickered, casting uncertain shadows across the table where Tonja and Enzo sat. The air was thick with tension, a testimony to their shared focus. The recent hostage situation had left echoes of distrust hanging in the space. "I still don't understand how they got to him," Tonja said, watching the unease ripple across Enzo's face. "He was a ghost. We thought we were untouchable." Enzo leaned back, his thoughts as enigmatic as his demeanor. "Where there's smoke, there's fire. We need to find out who benefits from his silence. But what you saw, it was like watching a nightmare unfold through someone else's eyes." Tonja's voice dropped as her gaze fell, tracing the scratches and scuffs of the table. "I felt him begging for help." A silence enveloped them, heavy and palpable. The quiet screamed between them, filled with unspoken fears and unacknowledged truths. "Are you ready to look again?" Enzo finally asked, his tone low and contemplative, like the calm before a storm. Tonja hesitated. Memories of the last vision clawed at her mind, vivid flashes of despair that left emotional bruises. She inhaled slowly, gathering her strength. "Let's do it," she whispered, the weight of resolve swelling in her chest. As she shifted her focus, the air around them changed, thickening with energy. The cacophony of the past pulled her under, thrusting her into the depths of terror where the hostage had been trapped. The world blurred into shades of gray, and suddenly the echoes of panicked breathing filled her ears. The terror was real, intense, and consuming. Images flashed before her, darkened corners of a damp room, a man in chains, the flicker of hope imprisoned within despair. Tonja felt her heart race as she relived the victim's last moments, struggling against his captors. Agony threaded through her mind, suffocating yet enlightening. "Tonja!" Enzo's voice broke through the vision, a firm anchor against the tide of chaos. Shaken, she withdrew her hand from the table, eyes wide and glistening. She found herself back in the interrogation room, breathless, entangled in the aftershocks of what she had witnessed. "Did you see anything?" His dark eyes bore into hers, searching for answers. "I saw their faces," she stammered, her hands trembling. "I saw him suffering. He tried to call for help. They're pulling strings, Enzo. Whoever this is, they know our every step." Enzo leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "Then we need to strike first. We can't let them make the next move." Just then, the door creaked open and Officer Collins peeked in, disrupting their moment. "Tonja, we have an urgent lead at the warehouse district." The distraction hung like a curtain, yet the magnetic pull between Tonja and Enzo thrummed stronger, palpable and vibrant as they exchanged brief glances, words unspoken yet loaded with meaning. "Right, let's wrap this up," she replied, though her words trembled with the unvoiced emotions swirling beneath the surface. Their eyes held for a moment longer, intimacy woven into the fabric of uncertainty. In that fleeting glance, a world shifted. In the chaos, Tonja felt a surge of something profound swell within her, a desire to connect, to escape the chilling realities that suffocated them both. "Tonja," Enzo murmured ever so softly, before reaching out to brush the back of his hand against hers. The warmth ignited a spark amidst the cool, clinical environment. "I understand if you're not ready for this," he said, the gravity of his words cradling the air between them. It was just a touch, yet it eluded the barriers of professionalism they'd so meticulously constructed. This moment felt electric, alive. The silence that followed stretched on, cradled between them, pushing against the boundaries they had woven around their partnership. Before she could reply, her heart pounded to drown out any words, any self-imposed restrictions. Tonja leaned forward, drawn to him like a flame to the night. Their lips met softly, a tentative exploration of shared trust, burdened by the fears of formless threats and the chaos surrounding their lives. The kiss deepened gently, melding weighty tension with a flicker of vulnerability. Tonja felt safety wrap around her, as if to shield them both from the storms brewing outside those walls. And then, as realities collided with desires, she pulled back, breathless, feeling the warmth of the moment linger like a promise unfulfilled. "We'll figure this out," Enzo said, searching her eyes, igniting the spark further. "We will," Tonja assured him, a fierce determination igniting the flickering hope within her. She felt it then, a softening in the barriers of the heart, a truth emerging in the depths. Amidst the shadows and the unraveling threads of conflict and danger, Tonja knew one thing for certain. They were in this together, forging a connection that would endure beyond the chaos, the heart of darkness illuminated by the light they shared. "Now, let's find that warehouse," she said, her voice steadier, fueled by a sense of purpose that made her feel alive amidst all the uncertainty. Scene 29. The blurred line. The sun dipped beyond the city skyline, streaking the sky with orange and pink hues. Tonja Coleman leaned against the cool metal railing of the rooftop patio, the sunset painting her tall frame in warm light. She closed her eyes for just a heartbeat, letting the calmness wash over her. But the unease in her chest tugged at her, threading anxiety through the quiet moments. Beside her, Enzo Arnaud shifted, his presence both comforting and confusing. He held a wine glass, swirling the dark liquid thoughtfully, as if searching for answers within. The distant sounds of traffic filled the air, muffled but steady, reminding them of the chaos that lay just a heartbeat away. "Still thinking about the case?" Enzo asked, his voice low and even. He kept his gaze fixed on the horizon, a lone figure silhouetted against the vibrant sky. "Always." Tonja sighed, crossing her arms defensively over her sweater. "But I can't shake the feeling that we're missing something." As the silence deepened, Enzo's eyes flickered to her profile, studying her. "There's a fine line between urgency and paranoia, you know." His tone was playful, but a thread of seriousness ran beneath. "You should be careful not to." "Not to what?" Tonja interjected, an edge creeping into her tone. "Pretend everything is fine. We're dealing with dangerous criminals, Enzo." Enzo turned, the playful facade slipping for a moment, revealing a glimpse of the concern he often masked. "And you're the best at this. You always have been." His expression softened. "But at some point, do you ever stop?" she asked, a sudden angst spilling over. "What part of me is the best at any of this? I'm trying to hold this fake engagement together while our lives hang in the balance, and it feels like you're just what?" Enzo's brow furrowed slightly, the wine glass now clenched in his hand. "Just there," she finished, throwing her hands up in frustration. "No offense, but it feels like I'm carrying the whole weight of this facade. We could actually. Actually what?" He stepped closer, his breath warm against the evening chill. "Engage in all this emotional nonsense? Or are we too busy pretending it's all just a job? It's not just you, and you know it." As their eyes locked, a magnetic tension surged between them, palpable and electric. Tonja felt her heartbeat quicken, retracing the lines, blurring the edges of their professional routine. There was something more than just camaraderie sparking in his stormy gaze. She paused, the weight of her unspoken feelings hanging in the air. The world around them faded, and everything felt weightless. Enzo stepped even closer, confounding her senses. "What if I told you we could be both? Partners, friends, however you want to frame it, but still feel something deeper?" His voice was a whisper, intimate yet tentative. Tonja could only nod, overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. The night felt alive, infused with unsaid promises, their shared experiences blazing silently between them. The laughter, the struggles, the close calls. "Do you remember the first time we nearly got caught?" she asked, her lips curving into a small smile, breaking the tension. Enzo chuckled, shaking his head. "How could I forget? You tackled that guy before I even had time to draw my weapon." "You did say I was the best," Tonja teased, leaning into the memory. But beneath the playful exterior, a flash of fear danced in her mind. The past, so recent and raw, intertwined with what they faced ahead, each case layered with danger, pushing them towards the brink. "Let's make sure we watch each other's backs, then," he said softly, the gravity of his gaze holding her steady. "Always," Tonja replied, the word hardly a promise but a truth that wrapped them both in resolve. But beneath that resolve lingered a realization that complicated every glance they shared. As night clawed its way across the city, a shout echoed from below, pulling them back to reality. Tonja and Enzo exchanged a silent agreement, both knowing this dance between them was only just beginning. And as they turned from the sunset, leaving behind the shared warmth and gravity of unacknowledged feelings, it was a new kind of determination igniting their hearts, a storm on the verge of breaking. Scene 30, Embattled Loyalties. The sleek hum of the city buzzed outside the tall glass windows of the FBI field office as the sun dipped into an orange haze. Tonja Coleman sat at her desk, meticulously reviewing case files scattered across her workspace. The faint rustle of papers mixed with the rhythmic clatter of keyboards echoed in the otherwise silent room. She had taken to organizing, finding solace in the mundane task, where each file represented a piece of the complex puzzle spinning ever closer to a dangerous climax. Enzo Arnaud, her partner, leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. He watched her, an unreadable expression on his face. "You really think this is the best use of our time?" Tonja glanced up, arching an eyebrow so elegantly it could cut glass. "And what do you suggest? A hearts and flowers approach?" She returned her gaze to the folder marked with bold red tape, a stark reminder of the stakes at hand. "I'm just saying, paperwork won't catch a snake in the grass," Enzo replied, pushing off the frame and stepping further into her space. He wore a tailored suit that accentuated his lean frame, each movement fluid yet calculated. Maybe you're right, she said, her voice low, but a good foundational understanding can keep us from getting bit. Tonja's voice dropped, a hint of vulnerability threading through her usual steely resolve. Enzo held her gaze, a flicker of something deeper passing between them, something unspoken yet tangible. The tension thickened like fog rolling into the city streets. Sometimes, within the quiet, the weight of their shared past felt insurmountable. "You know I just want to protect you," he said, his tone surprisingly soft. With a huff of laughter, she broke the tension. "You're just upset you don't have any episode-worthy drama to play out right now." She smirked, a spark igniting in her eyes. "What's next? A car chase through downtown? Wouldn't that be a nice change?" Enzo retorted, a hint of mischief lifting his lips. But his smile faded as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by the remembering weight of their current troubles. Across the room, Rosie Santana entered with purpose, her heels clicking decisively against the polished floor. The air shifted with her presence, a bright energy that demanded attention. "Hey, you two lovebirds planning a romantic getaway or just doing the boring paperwork tango? Why don't you come tell us how you feel after you finish dealing with the precinct's paperwork?" Tonja shot back with a teasing glare. "Touché," Rosie replied, hands on her hips. "But I come bearing news. The syndicate is on our tail, and they're not happy." Enzo's posture straightened, tension rippling through him. "What's the intel?" "There's been an increase in their activities. Little Birdie says they're targeting people close to you." Rosie leaned in, lowering her voice. "Emotional collateral damage, if you catch my drift." She gestured meaningfully to Tonja, who felt a shiver of anxiety ripple through her. Tonja's mind raced. "So, they're escalating. We need to stay vigilant. We can't let them control the narrative." The thought sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Instinctively, she reached for Enzo's arm, their brief physical contact sending that familiar rush of heat. He tensed, ever the stoic protector. "We need a plan. Now." "What are y'all going to do?" Rosie interjected, her eyes glowing with feigned intrigue. Tonja released O, stepping back, masking the emotions simmering beneath. "We'll split up. That way they can't target us both." "That's reckless," Enzo interjected sharply. "We need to stick together. The last thing we need is for you to end up in their line of fire." "You being my bodyguard doesn't exactly fit my idea of safety, Enzo." Tonja's voice rang out, filled with both defiance and a sting of truth. They stood toe-to-toe, their feelings for one another turbulent, volatile, like an electrifying storm brewing just before the downpour. Rosie cleared her throat, a playful grin on her face. "Well, it's saving our romantic escapades for another day. Unless," she waggled her eyebrows. "Enough with the dramatics," Tonja cut in, the tension subsiding slightly yet charged in the air. "This is about ensuring safety, not some sitcom plot." As the weight of the conversation settled, silence enveloped the room. The three of them shared a moment, the air thick with unspoken fears and protective instincts. Enzo broke the pause, his voice steady yet intense. "Whatever it takes, we're in this together. Betrayal won't break us." "I hope you mean that," Tonja said, staring deep into his eyes, searching for the reassurance she craved. "Because I can't afford to lose anyone else, especially not you." Their gaze lingered, and for a breath, the world beyond faded. The depth of their connection painted a vivid contrast against the encroaching shadows. As the night awaited them, danger circled like wolves, and perhaps this embattled journey would forge the strongest bonds of all. Scene 31. Strategic Alliances. The rain drummed on the asphalt outside, creating a rhythmic serenade that blended seamlessly with the dim white light of the cafe. Inside, the air was thick with the rich aroma of brewing coffee and the warm scent of freshly baked pastries. Tonja Coleman sat at a secluded corner table, her fingers tracing the rim of her ceramic cup as she scanned the room. The soft murmur of conversations and clinking of silverware formed a backdrop, but her focus was on the sprawling web of relationships that defined her world, an intricate chessboard of allies, enemies, and uncertain loyalties. Across the table, her best friend Rosie Santana, vibrant as ever with hair glistening like spun gold, handed over a thin file. "I got a lead for you," Rosie said, her tone conspiratorial yet light. "You remember Marcus Anderson?" Tonja's brow furrowed slightly. "The fixer. I thought he was long gone after that sting operation in Miami." He's resurfaced and surprisingly eager to share some intel, Rosie replied, her voice infused with a teasing lilt. Might be worth a coffee date with him. Tonja rolled her eyes, though a hint of amusement flickered across her face. I'm not sure coffee date is the right term for talking to someone like him. It's more a casual interrogation, maybe? Sure, but you gotta admit he's nice to look at, Rosie quipped, a mischievous smile dancing across her lips. Tonja felt the warmth of laughter bubble in her chest, a welcome contrast to the weight of her thoughts. Can we focus on the case? Tonja replied, hiding her own amusement behind a sip of hot coffee. She tried to redirect the conversation, but the corners of her mouth twitched involuntarily. What's the story? He's caught wind of the Black Lotus, and rumors suggest they're planning something big, Rosie said, leaning in closer, her expression somber now. We need to move fast. Tonja felt the shift in energy, the urgency settling over them like a thick fog. Then let's arrange a meet, she concluded, her voice steady but layered with an uncharacteristic vulnerability that even she had not anticipated. As they strategized, the ambient chatter faded and she glimpsed the truth behind Rosie's playful facade. You all right? Tonja asked, her voice softer now. You seem you know how it can get in this line of work. Rosie interjected quickly, her playful facade cracking just enough for a shadow to slip through.